Welcome to this module on identity and access management. This section is really important because this is where we grant access to other people, create user accounts for, let's say, developers or even finance people so that they can see the billing reports in AWS. It's important to assign right set of permissions to your developers so that they get access to AWS just as much as their job demands. So let's go ahead and dive in to IAM and understand this better. IAM is a service that will let you create user accounts, groups, roles, manage user credentials, set up password policies as well. Here, you can secure your account with multi-factor authentication and manage the API keys for programmatic access. We'll talk about these individual components one by one, but let's get into the IAM section and see what we can do here. To go to the IAM section, I'll just click on services and then type IAM here and it just pops that up. Or you can type IAM in the search box. It will take you to the same section. Okay, we are now here in the IAM dashboard. So on the left hand side, you got the options to create users, groups, roles, and policies, and we'll go through these options one after another. But at this time, I'm just showing you around the dashboard. So as you see, the user count is just one. That means I've created just one user in my IAM in this subscription. I've got one group, I've got 11 managed policies, 58 roles, and 0 identity providers. Right below that, I see the security status of identity and access management. Have I deleted the root access keys? Yes or no? Looks like I've deleted access keys, and that's why I have this green checkbox. But what is an access key? An access key is used to programmatically access the services in AWS. At this point, we are logged into AWS using aws.amazon.com. Now, this is a graphical user interface, but there will be situations where you may have to launch PowerShell or command line interface or programmatically read and write data into, let's say, the S3 bucket, right? So at that point, you will supply the access keys to the application, like the command prompt or the PowerShell, so that you can then upload and download the data to S3 bucket or create or manage delete the virtual machines in the EC2 section. Okay, so remember that access keys are used to programmatically manage the resources in AWS. But if you would like to manage the resources using the graphical user interface, you will need a user ID and a password. Okay, as an example, I will go ahead and create a user account in AWS. So to do that, I'll click on users. Well, I could have clicked that or click on users. It's the same thing, all right? So I have a user account called as Mary, and you got other statistics like Mary is not part of any group. Mary has an access key, and the age of the access key is 273 days, which is approximately a year. And the password age is 293 days, which is not good. So Mary has not changed the password since 293 days. When did Mary last log on? It's been 77 days since Mary logged on, and Mary has not set up any multi-factor authentication, right? So here in the users dashboard, I will be able to see all the users that I have in my AWS subscription and their respective statistics as far as security is concerned. Okay. Now let's go ahead and click on add user and I'll fill up this form. Let's say I'll call him as Rob. And as you see, I can create multiple user accounts in one go. All right. But I'm going to just keep it simple and create one user account for now. The next option here is how would you allow Rob to access the resources in AWS? Is it programmatically using access key ID and secret access key and or using the AWS management console? Well, you can give both the options here. That's not a problem. But this is where you can control how a user can connect to your AWS services. So if you're granting access to a developer or somebody who's writing that API calls using a third-party application, they will need an access key and a secret access key for sure. But if it's a person who will log into the AWS console, maybe to create resources using the user interface, or maybe generate some billing reports for the finance team, then they will just need a password. Okay. So there are two options of generating a password. One is automatically generated by Amazon. Second one is where you can type in your own password for the user Rob, and then you will share this password with Rob. Okay, I will let it automatically generate, and the next option is require password reset. So once Rob receives an automatically generated password from you, do you want Rob to keep his own password? So when Rob logs in for the first time, he will be prompted to change his password, which is a good security posture, and that's why we would like to leave this checked. Okay, I'll click on next, and this is where you can add users to a group. Permissions are always granted to the group. Okay, we'll speak more about it when we start creating groups and then assign permissions to the group, but remember that it's always a good practice to have users added to a group and then assign permissions to the group instead of adding permissions to the user directly. You got other options. You can copy permissions from an existing user. So if I would like to grant Rob the same permissions as Mary, then I will check this. And when I do that, it means that all the permissions like EC2 full access, and there are four more permissions it seems right here. So all of these permissions that Mary has will be replicated and assigned to Rob as well. And the last option is where I can attach the policies directly. Policies are set of permissions, right? So for example, I want to make Rob a storage admin. So I want to make him an admin to the S3 bucket. So I'll hit S3 here and then click on this which says Amazon S3 full access. So what am I doing here? I'm making Rob a full administrator for S3. So if I go ahead and uncheck this and check this, can you answer what's going to happen next? Well, Rob will get read-only permissions to S3 bucket. Okay, so I'm gonna do just that. So I'll click on next, and with this, Rob will have read-only permissions to the S3 buckets. Let's click next. And that brings us to the tagging section. Tagging is very important. I think we did mention about this in one of the previous lessons when we were talking about the resource groups. Tagging is a way to identify the resources, identify the objects, so you can maybe charge them back or identify who they belong to. For example, I'll say business unit. So Rob belongs to a business unit called as marketing. Okay, who's the manager? So I'll put that Mark at company.com is the manager of Rob, right? Similarly, you can have up to 50 tags per resource. So I'll click next. Finally, review this and click on create user. It doesn't take much time to create a user for us, and there you go, it is created. Rob now has a password which is automatically generated and also has an access key ID and a secret access key as well. I need to share this information to Rob so that with access key ID and secret access key, Rob can programmatically access resources in the S3 bucket. And if you would like to manage certain activities using the user interface, then Rob will use his username and the password to log in. Alright, that's all for now. In the next lesson, we'll see how Rob can log in and show you the user interface that Rob can see when he logs into the AWS console.